There.
Good morning, everybody. I want to call to order the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission meeting for August 12th, 2024. And we'll first start out with a roll call. And let's just go left to right.
Lansing Duncan, 3rd District. Rob Knight, 4th District.
Karen Steinwalks, 3rd District.
Keith Kaufman Gray, 1st District Chair.
Ronald Nye at large.
Sheila Snow, 1st District.
Richard Saloga, 2nd District.
Okay, we have a quorum. Commissioner Wittoj emailed me this morning and he has a cold, and so he's not going to be here today. Okay, we'll move on to the, if you have any public comment or anything that is not on today's agenda.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Please state your name. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Mark Preston, a 60-year resident of Santa Barbara County, North County, and South County both. I'm currently a docent at the county courthouse. I'm currently on the Goleta Landmarks Committee, so I'm kind of in my area of expertise, or not expertise, but interest. Let's just call it interest. About 2 years ago, I sat down to write a brief article about the gap between Goleta and San Luis Obispo, the railroad gap that lasted until 1901. It's an interesting story. I thought, well, I should do a little research. Over 2 years later, this is the book that I came, as it just kept growing. So it's about the Gaviota Pass and how it shaped the history of Santa Barbara in ways that a lot of people just don't gather. So even as I expanded the book, Fremont was not in my outline, but I kept running across a story about John Fremont that exists at the northern rest area, North 101 rest area, and there's also one out on Foxen Canyon Road. Huge stone monuments that tell the story. Fremont was going to go through Gaviota Pass. Mexican army had set up a ambush for them way back, and Foxen gently guided them over the hill here, and they ended up coming down somewhere between Patterson Fairview into Goleta. Had to leave half of their cannons and a lot of their dead horses up there because it was just so muddy and rainy. So anyway, it just became apparent to me, looking at things from different angles about that area, that the Fremont story just absolutely was not true. It was impossible. There was no way it could have ever happened. However, this puts you in kind of a gray area because it is a state of California land, but it's never been landmarked in Santa Barbara County. So one could ask you what the purview is of a landmark on a boulder, not very big, and a big brass plaque. And so how that works with you, I don't know. But I want to know, can you agendize this or somehow deal with it to find out, does HLAC have an opinion? Because the committee did have an opinion in 1937. So I went back and forth with the state about 2 weeks about the state designating the landmark as Foxen and Fremont and the ambush, et cetera. And I did trace it back to this rather popular little tome called Santa Barbara Tierra Adorada. And so I just read this from my class across the street, and I got into it, and I got to the Fremont part, and I said, this is untrue, which kind of makes me, is this guy some kind of an armchair historian, or was he just kind of making it up as he goes? So the other way that this plays into your group, and I have one complete copy of the entire file, but I will be emailing a PDF of all this stuff. Because after a couple of weeks with the state expunged the name of Fremont from the state landmark. They literally, the guy came back, it's the most amazing thing. He came back and he said, after about 4 emails, he said, "You're right. We've changed the landmark in the state of California." So in this file, there is the what it was on September 22nd, what it was on September 23rd in 2022. So the state is on board. And here's the part that led me here, because it kind of irked me that this was kind of phony baloney history. But I kind of set it along until I found one of the documents in here, the guy from the States. This is probably what got him to do it. Your chairman, your Mr. Greger, the historic chairman, back in 1937, chairman of this group was a man named Supervisor Farquhar, because the structure was different then. The committee had a supervisor and a committee of appointed people, and they would go through these issues. And so whoever was trying to put up this monument came to the Santa Barbara, your group, your exact group, and said, applied for landmark status. I'll just cut to the chase and say, members of the committee see no reason for justifying something that did not happen. Your chairman of your group said the whole Foxen thing did not happen. And then it says examination very history. So there is formal notice in the file. I think the guy got tired of dealing with my email. He just went down to the basement, picked up all this Xerox, read it, and said, "Oh." So my question to you, and it's not on the agenda, and it's a thorny issue, is does Santa Barbara HLAC have anything to say about it? Because it is a massive monument. It's not realistic. It's kind of like the more benign the mission bells go up and down Highway 101 to Real. I can see somebody from Iowa having images of friars going through the Gaviota Pass, and it really didn't work that way. The thesis of my book is that Gaviota Pass shaped the history of Santa Barbara by not being a pass, but by being an impact. And really not much was happening there until 1860 when they started. First of 24 bridges, whatever it is that they've so, interesting book. You buy it at Amazon.com and Chaucer. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk about the chapter on Fremont. So the chapter on Fremont is in this book, and
I want to thank you for coming today and going over it. And we definitely will probably look into this. As you know, we're an advisory commission, so whatever we do has to go to the Board of Supervisors for final approval. I'm not sure how the process is to remove a plaque, but we can look into it and see if it's feasible.
commemorating the Elvis Presley concert in 1969 at the Granada Theater. It didn't happen.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
You were right ahead.
My mic wasn't on. I'd like to thank Mr. Preston for speaking truth to power with the state of California. That's awesome. And it's a good reminder that we have to be careful of the mythology that is created.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Preston. Thank you for coming. Let me interrupt myself by saying we have a technician in the back who's studying the sound system. Can you hear the echoes? From here,
We couldn't.
we're hearing a giant echo system Well, this has been a problem for a long time, and I I even had trouble picking out Commissioner Duncan's words. They're kind of echoed and modeled together. Anyway, thank you for whatever help you can lend. Mr. Preston, this commission was on pins and needles, at least I was, while the whole process in Goleta was going forward to finally establish a preservation ordinance and to select your commission. So we're very pleased to make your acquaintance and pleased that you've come in. Could you say one more time what landmark aside from the state, is there a second landmark marker there?
Yes, there is. It's a gigantic stone marker at the northbound rest stop at Gaviota. Big one. The one that's open once a year, every 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's there, and it was done by the, I don't know, Holy Daughters of something, some group.
Well, it could have been Eclampus Vitus.
It's all in the book. I've got a picture of
All right.
the daughters of,
Were they daughters, native daughters
sorry,
of the whatever?
Uh,
Okay. What is it, your opinion?
the
Yeah.
other one is almost all the way to Sisquoc on Boxing Canyon Road. It's kind of a pullout, and it's a more fancy I think it's got the, and these are not insignificant.
Are you advocating that we should consider the pass as a landmark because of its historical significance aside from Fremont? Is that why you're here?
State did. They said, okay, we got to expunge the Fremont story. And I think it might be more incumbent upon you to work with the state about how the verbiage should be. So the guy just says, I just put the verbiage here. What he put is, this is Gaviota Pass. Pull it up. Designated in 1930 to recognize the significance of Gaviota Pass as one of California's historic mountain passes. Gaviota Pass history, explorers and settlers, you know. So he kind of painted it in this vague point. The whole point of my is when Rio showed up, that Gaviota Pass was less than 6 feet wide. Kind of going through where the Indians' nose is, and it really was never a point of transport, except for maybe 4 or 5 months. The mule and a single person, armies through there, whatever. In 1769, Sarah, de Portola, speed went. He got the Gaviota. Everybody knows he got the Gaviota. Anybody know they did not go through the Gaviota? They took one look at that thing, and these guys were professionals. You know, they had mules and soldiers. And you know what they did? And this is in Evie's book, translated all of Father Crespi and Sarah's communication. They went down on the beach and had a skidder like that all the way up almost to Point. I have hiked, you can only do it at low tide. So what they had to do, and they had this big entrance, so they make sometimes. So
Thank you, Mr. President, because we've got to move on with today's agenda, but we'll look into this and we have a lot to go on here. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
Well, let's move on to the.
we have one more hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tim Hazelton.
Okay.
Can
Go
you
ahead,
hear me?
Tim.
I just wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Chair. First, I wanted to mention that I'm obviously joining remote, and the speaker at the lectern, every couple of words, the volume goes down to the point you cannot hear them speak. And occasionally you cannot hear the commissioner's responses or questions, just so you know. I'm actually speaking today about last month's meeting when the All Saints on Eucalyptus Lane was being heard for the landmarking of that property. And a commissioner mentioned that the report prepared by Post Hazeltine Associates, which I'm a member of or a partner in, used the wrong significance criteria. And actually, we prepared the report in 2015, and the criteria that were used in 2015 are not the criteria that are used today as they were updated in 2018. So I just wanted to make that point clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and explaining the difference there and the dates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Tim while we're done? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's.
Thank
move
you
on.
for clarifying that point, Mr.
You're
Hazelton.
welcome.
Okay, well, let's move on to the minutes. We're going to look at the unapproved minutes for July 8th, 2024. And I first want to thank Jonathan Martin for going through the whole listening and doing the initial draft minutes, and then also for Land Commissioner Duncan for taking that and then rearranging it to see what you see in front of you today. So both of them worked really hard because it was a very detailed type meeting that we had. And so we have very good detailed minutes on this. So I hope everyone had a chance to look at this in advance.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
there's one spot I can still see that we have an omission, and that's on page 2, under the standard agenda, number 8, designation of the Chafee residence, and where it speaks about public comment, representatives who spoke on the owner's behalf. Apart from Steve Fort, there was Amy Steinfeld, the attorney for the owner. She also spoke.
And as long as we're on that one bullet point, I think it might be important to state that they were against the nomination. Should that be under just very brief? They spoke against. Yeah, what do you, the commissioners think? I think that's important that they should be why they spoke.
Actually, if you think about what they said, their comments were mixed. Ms. Steinfeld actually thanked council and the commission for the carve out that we had included in the designation. And she made a point of correcting the language there so that that carve out was fully included in the direction of the resolution. And so while they thanked us for our efforts, they also said that the owner remained opposed to landmark designation. So if you include something, I think you ought to include that entire statement to that effect.
So what do you think? Should we put that in the minute? I think, did you get that, Jonathan? Okay. Yeah, but be sure to do the first part that.
I would get, and thank the HLAC for the efforts to create the carve out.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan. Is that it? Okay. Any other comments on the minute?
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
These are excellent minutes, well-written, and I just can't say enough about them. My only concerns are on page 3, where it isn't consistently indicated who said what. It looks like the bullets 1, 2, and 3, I only know that because I was here, that was all Mr. Malcolm, but it only indicates his name at the on the first bullet. So can we, however you want to do that, yeah, indicate the next 2 paragraphs were Mr. Malcolm's, and then the same goes for towards the bottom of the page. The bottom 2 bullets were all Mr. Duncan's, as well as carrying over to the 3rd bullet, which is on page 4. It's just, if the reader picks this up, would not really understand who was saying those particular. Yeah, that,
Bottom, at the bottom.
and the one on the other side. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to point out, there's an alternate way to do that very simply, is simply erase those bullets and the separations of the separate paragraphs. And then it'll be very clear. You'll have large blocks of text, but it'll be clear that they were all under one commissioner.
Any other comments on the? Someone like to move to accept the minutes?
Mr. Chair, then I would move that the HLAC adopt the minutes of July 8th, 2024 as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a move by Commissioner Duncan, a second by Commissioner Snow. All in favor to accept the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, minutes are carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to staff update. Planning and Development, HLAC staff will provide a brief oral announcement of reporter items of general interest to the commission and members. Do you have any staff updates today?
Maybe just the one staff update. Myself, David Villalobos, and our hearing support staff had a meeting with Andrew Rasura over last week regarding historical landmarks expenditures, and they're going to be looking at communicating with Keith regarding the increase in expenditures.
I'm sorry, we're having a hard time hearing.
You guys aren't hearing me? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Hearing support had a meeting with Andrew Rasura, and one of the items discussed was increasing the staff amount dedicated in the budget.
Oh, very good.
Yes, so that was brought to Andrew's attention at the meeting, and he will be in contact with the chair regarding that when they start working on the budgets.
Great, thank you. I've been in communication with Mr. Villalobos about that and other people too. So, and I think that's a great news. At least it's being looked into.
Yes. May I ask, and what is the goal of this looking into of the budget? Is there
To make sure staff
what do they want to accomplish?
to make sure staff time doesn't go over 100% each year. That the right amount is allocated and they're budgeting the correct amount each year. So when he sees that it's over 200%, that means that the budget is not being added up correctly. So we want to
As the
make sure.
commissioners know, our staff time has not increased at least since 2011. When we looked at the budget for another project, and we saw the budget and we saw the same amount for 2011 is the same as today. And obviously there's been a few increases in labor costs since then. So I'm very happy to hear that they're looking into it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd note that this commissioner is very pleased to hear that. And I would say all those who are putting the budget together have to do is look at what has been spent in the last few years, if they want to get an idea of a realistic cost for our staff time. Thank you.
I have one question for staff. I don't know if you have an answer, but I just want to put it out there because I'm sure all of us are thinking about it. Has there been any updates on the Moody Cottage demolition, landmark number 50?
I haven't received any updates for that item.
Just want to be aware that we're still very interested. Okay, so let's move on to the chair project discussion. I have a few things to go over with today. And the first one might seem kind of tedious, but I want everyone to be aware of the timeline and what has been going on in the last month and a half that hasn't been really shared to the commission. And I'm going to give an update on the All Saints by the Sea Episcopal Church nomination. As you know, on June 10th, HLAC designated All Saints Historic Landmark as a historic landmark. Right after we did the designation, Ann Ryerson emailed me to go ahead and work to get it to move forward to the Board of Supervisors because we had a 90-day period. And she was leaving on vacation, so she quickly said, please go ahead and contact, I think it was Travis Seawards, to get the ball rolling, to get the nomination on the agenda. That was on June 12th. On June 14th, I got an email from Travis saying that I would need to contact the applicant, All Saints, and they would need to put up a, how do I word it here? Glasses on. They would have to put up a required $3,000 deposit, so staff's time will be charged against, per hour, it will be charged against All Saints for the time it takes to do the work to get it on the agenda. And as you know, as you can imagine, I was quite surprised. An applicant has never had to pay to have a nomination that they put forward after we approve it to go to the Board of Supervisors. So, of course, Ann was gone. So I contacted Callie Kim, who's the person that is the second in command for me to talk to. And she said she'd look into it. And so that was on June 16th. And I explained to her that, you know, I'm very concerned because our website, our bylaws, and Chapter 18A has no mention of fees for an applicant. So if they go on the application on our county website, there's the form, but there's no mention that they're going to be charged fees after HLAC makes your nomination a historic landmark or place of merit, before it gets to the Board of Supervisors. As you mentioned at the last meeting, I mentioned that I had a meeting on July 1st with Lisa Plowman, who's head of planning development, and also Travis Seawards, and we covered a lot of topics. And that was one of the topics. I didn't mention it because it was in discussion at that time, so I did not mention that last month. You know, they said they were looking into it and they'd look at my concern about this. And it was basically explained to me that, you know, in 2017, the Board of Supervisors made planning development a fee neutral department, which basically they have to take in enough fees to pay for the people's salaries, basically. So it should be a revenue neutral. And that was officially in 2017. And they said that the cost to do all of these nominations is coming out of money they do not have, and they're not making their, you know, they're not balancing their budget. So that was why they were doing this. So anyway, on July 15th, this was on July 1st, after our meeting we had last month, Travis CC'd me an email that was sent to All Saints saying they would have to submit the determination application and put up a $3,000 deposit. So I emailed Ann Ryerson because she was back by then, way back by then. And basically, that was the final decision. We decided that if a nomination is brought forward from a property owner, become a historic landmark, that they will be charged these fees after we decide it's going to be a historic landmark or go to the Board of Supervisors. also in this conversation, and then on July 16th, I received an email back about the talk that I had on July 1st from Lisa and Travis, and they went over some bullet points. And Travis sent me an email, and he said that they're looking at the budget flexibility, which it sounds like that's what's going on. They also assigned Nicole Liu, she's a planner, as a point person for contact for HLAC. So if I need something or someone needs to know who to contact, that they can go forward, Nicole Liu will now be that person. She won't be attending meetings like in the past, but at least she's been assigned to be the person I can talk to or anybody wants to talk to. And then, of course, then they mentioned about the having to pay the fees. And at the same time, Anne emailed me and she confirmed the policy that is, so this is basically the policy that's in place now, is that when a property owner initiates the nomination, planning and development will charge for that period between we do it and then Board of Supervisors here. Planning and development current approach is that they will not charge to bring landmark designations to the Board of Supervisors when HLAC initiates the nomination. So like right now we're doing the Chaffee residence, which already got approved. So they're not being charged. And we're going to have Cold Springs Bridge coming up. We initiated that, so there'll be no charge for that. Now, you have to remember, this current approach is kind of the word of this, so it could change. So I guess, but right now, if we bring a nomination, which we've been doing recently, there will not be that charge. But if someone has a property and they want it to be a nomination, like All Saints, person will be charged going forward. Just to let you know, on July 28th, remember now, I have to say, I'm the one that kind of delayed this process because I was concerned about this fees and I was trying to get a resolution before All Saints was told they had to make this, make payment deposit. So on July 28th, All Saints, they were told about it. So All Saints submitted the application and the fees on July 29th. July 31st, Nicole Liu confirmed that the fees were paid. And she's also told me that it's now taking about 12 weeks to put anything on the Board of Supervisors agenda. And so she's currently looking at October 1st or October 15th for the All Saints nomination. Now, we did it on June 6th, I believe. So that would be past the 90 days. So just to let you know, I have scheduled to re-vote on the nomination at our next meeting on September 9th. So we'll be bringing the All Saints nomination back to us because it expires basically that day or the day before. I mean, it expires so that we'll have to resubmit it. So that's the story on All Saints. And Nicole also asked me to let her know in advance if HLAC is scheduling any nominations coming up, that she'll have a little head start to start getting it on the Board of Supervisors agenda. So I told her about next month, we've scheduled the Cold Springs Bridge. So she knows that. So she's already starting to assign a planner to move it to the Board of Supervisors so we don't miss the night. So that is my All Saints update. And I'm sorry it's so long, but it's one of these things that it just jumped out of the blue. Planning development is very adamant that they have to be able to pay for the work that's done. And so this is going to be something going forward. And I know it's hard. It's not on the agenda, so it's hard to take questions. Anne, I really can't take any questions from commissioners on this. It's such a big issue that I understand everyone has a question on.
I think you could answer a couple questions.
No, Commissioner Miller, go right ahead. You are first.
Thank you. Since we have to renominate the church, would it, to get around the stupid new rule, because it is ridiculous, can we put one of our names as a commissioner, as one of the presenters, and get rid of that fee for these people? And from,
someone,
well, as
Oh.
to nominate, to renominate
We
this
almost have a
property.
rubber stamp,
Yeah,
so I don't think we have to go through the whole
well,
presentation. That's an Ann Ryerson.
no, I'm sorry, excuse me. As far as representing it and saving them $3,000, which is ridiculous that they have to pay.
Well, no, they won't have to pay a second time. This is.
No, even reimbursing them as just kind of editing it as to tell the county, hey, the commission is putting it forward as well in conjunction with the church.
It's already, the nomination is already,
I'm just trying to,
yeah, I know.
box
You-
I think from
said I
now
was
on,
not having them to have to pay anything. They're a nonprofit to begin with. It's not like they have lots of money.
right.
Um, So, I mean, it's a great suggestion, but I don't think we can do it. It's already in the.
Okay, unfortunate. But maybe from now on, to suggest whoever's from the outside is going to apply for a landmark status, maybe one of us put our name on as a commissioner, so they don't have those stupid fees.
I was thinking of that a lot, but I'm also thinking about the county is saying the current approach, and if we're doing lots and lots of our own nominations, they're going to say, this is costing us too much money. You're now going to have to pay. I'm just afraid that we might be in the same situation. So I hate to put our name on every single one.
Oh, okay.
But we do have a subcommittee that's looking at these, and we are bringing those from us, to the Board of Supervisors, Commissioner Stein.
So, my experience, because I've been through this before, is when I went to get a permit, P&D said I had to have this designate or looked at for a designation. So did I bring that forward?
Yes, but see, there was no charge at that time.
No, I'm not thinking about the charge. I'm just thinking of the semantics. So if I was told by P&D that I had to have it looked at, which I didn't know, and then I did bring it forward. So did I bring it forward, or did P&D tell me I had to do it? And therefore it's HLAC.
Well, you brought the nomination forward.
Well, I
So,
wouldn't know if P&D hadn't told me I had to.
yeah, but you're so anxious to pay money.
No, you didn't pay any money. Well, for that. See my point, though? I mean, I was,
Well, I think, I think you certainly could be considered the person that brought it forward. But beyond that, I just wanted to clarify that the $3,000 is a deposit, which is the standard deposit when you apply for a permit through the county. And they start deducting their costs from that 3,000. So theoretically, you could get most of it back. Not likely. Yeah. So at about a year ago, it was 288 an hour, and that's probably gone up. But it is strictly not 3,000 up front. It is up front, but theoretically, you get some of that back. But it's generally not likely.
Just for clarity, has the church agreed to put forth that?
They did. Like I said, on July 28th, I have the receipt here that they put the money up and everything. Back in, let's see, this all happened in June, like June 15th, when I got that email saying that they would have to pay. I did not let them know that because I was trying to change the policy. So a month elapsed. I was working with county council and planning development trying to get this not to happen. And so it's kind of my fault that they're being delayed now because I waited a month before they quit. So I apologize if they're listening. But I was just trying to save them money. This was something out of the blue that we did.
I think it's fortunate that they decide to pay the fee. Being a church nonprofit, they could have said, no, thanks. We don't want to do this anymore.
And I think, we'll have to get some subcommittees to look at like our website. We need to start changing what it says on the website. When someone pulls it up, they know in advance before they get started.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I would point out a couple things. One, it sounds like uh, planning of development isn't going to charge All Saints for the time that is spent coming to us. Um, and it's when it goes to the Board of Supervisors that this charge occurs. It's the time spent before the board. Um, that's just a clarification. But I would point out that although the general policy of having planning and development support itself, basically having development pay for its own review, makes sense. I think we can understand that. The point is, we're not talking about development now. We're talking about resource protection. It's the very opposite of development. And we're encouraging citizens to come forward with their properties, hire historians, fill out this form, come here, talk to us, um, and go through this process voluntarily. Uh, and obviously, it's counterproductive if they end up having to be charged for it. It sort of makes you wonder if planning and development sees this policies as so iron strict in the general that you can't deal with individual cases, then maybe we're working under the wrong department. Maybe we should be another department of the county that is involved with resource protection and the public's use of an enjoyment of facilities rather than this department who can't see that we're actually saving the community money and saving the community's resources by having members of the public do this voluntarily.
So this also flies into the other discussions we've had about the fact that there is few incentives to do so. So we have no, I mean, there's no tax break or anything else unless you're in the city of Santa Barbara, correct? And that was something previously on, we haven't really discussed yet, but, you know, so basically you could think of the, if you go to the like Chaffee situation, they could just refuse to pay and then done, right?
Well, the Chaffee one is, we brought it forward.
I mean, it's the same.
No, but I understand. Like I say, we're trying to look at incentives. We've been looking at this. And I had discussions with planning development to increase incentives for property owners to bring it. Because right now, there's really not a lot of incentives. Now, with all these extra fees, we're pretty much, we're not going to be having nominations coming to us. And that's supposed to be what we're supposed to do in our bylaw. Okay, we need to move on.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is very brief. I think we should consider writing a strong letter to the Board of Supervisors and articulate the issues and the big picture the way Mr. Duncan did just now.
I'd concur with that, Mr. Chair.
Someone would like to work on that? I appreciate it. Commissioner Duncan, would you like to start on that?
I'll work with somebody else.
About Commissioner Nye, since he's an historian. Okay, and then we can come back and, okay, this is it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm still in chair project discussion. Okay, an update on the Chaffee residence. This is the 2929 East Valley Road. As you all remember, last month, July 8th, we designated the Chaffee residence as the County of Santa Barbara Historic Landmark. It is was in the process of going to Board of Supervisors. I just want everyone to know that on July 16th, the owners filed an appeal for our decision, and they paid the fee for the appeal. And so it's in the process of going to the Board of Appeal is going to go to the Board of Supervisors. So it just happened July 16th, so I don't know anything more. All I know is that what our decision. Okay, Cold Springs Bridge nomination, historic landmark. Just want everyone to know that on July 18th, Amber Long completed the nomination, which we had contracted her to do. The chair is doing the 30-day peer review of the nomination, and I have to say it looks very good. And so right now, the notice of being scheduled for a meeting, I'm scheduling the meeting I mentioned earlier for our next meeting, September 9th. Doing the nomination on September 9th. Right now, notices to the state of California for about our hearing, it has to be sent in advance, so that's being sent out right now. I just want everyone to know that the Cold Springs Bridge nomination, which we are bringing forward, will be heard at the next month's meeting. Invoice for bronze plaques. This was back in June. We approved, I believe it was up to $1,500 for the cost of the plaques. We were, at the time that we did this, Erie Landmark Company is the one company that's making, the foundry that's making the plaques for the 6 historic landmarks that need plaques. They established their account with the County of Santa Barbara. So that's all done. So in the future, it's already in the system. The invoice dated 6/21/24 was paid, and the amount was $1,345.80. I did not put this in your packet because you had this exact same invoice. So when there probably might be a little additional shipping when the plaques are sent, because there was only $30 for shipping in that invoice. So probably it's going to, I think they said it'll be $50. So there'll be a little bit more charged from our budget from that, but it still will be way below the $1,500. The plaques are in a queue for production. It's about a 6 to 8 week time period to make a plaque once it's been approved. And this was in the queue in July, so getting probably towards the end of production. So I would say in a few weeks, probably be completed and then sent. So that's the invoice for the bronze plaques. I just wanted you to be up to date on that. And that is my chair, and then we project discussion. If there's any other else, that was my chair mentions I wanted to go over today. Okay, so let's move on to item number 6. This is the budget. Everyone should have received the current budget, and I mean our new budget for 24-25. And I just want to go over a couple of things before we open the discussion. Is right away I noticed that there is a travel expense for $155. Everyone should have that. This, I believe, should be in last year's budget, and I'm having Jonathan look into it because I remember at the June meeting, I mentioned everybody to get your mileage in for the end of June or the end of the fiscal year. And no one's been asked to bring in mileage travel expenses since July 1st. So I believe all of this amount that's here, which isn't a whole lot, but hey, every little bit counts, should have been in last year's budget. And so I'm hoping that can get moved. The other thing, though, if you look at our staff support amount, it was over $2,000 for the month of July. It's only 1 month. Now, I went back to last year's and did a little quick division. We're averaging about $1,300 a month. So I'm very concerned about this because I'm not sure where this money's coming from, especially after what's happening with the extra charges. So I had an email to Mr. Villalobos about this, and I'm kind of looking into it. So, you know, I mean, if we get our expenditures increased to over $2,000 a month for 12 months, that would be great. We don't have to worry about it. But I'm just afraid that maybe I shouldn't be talking to Nicole Liu, our planner, because I'm being charged every time I pick up the phone and talk to her. So that could be what is going on here. So I'm asking David Villalobos to look into this to see the current charges. Where can I make sure that I'm not making a mistake in making more charges? Cut down communication. So anyway, so that's our month's budget. Because yeah, like I said, I was looking at last year's, we were about 200% over the last year's. We're already 30%. Any other discussions on the budget? Any efforts on how we can get this less than 2,000? Like I said, it was averaging more like.
Yes, I have a question. Do we see a breakdown of that, what they charge, the hourly or any of that?
I'm looking into it. I think a lot of this is sensitive material. So David gave me, Mr. Villalobos gave me last year's breakdown, and it seemed in line. I mean, what you would think, you know, Jonathan Martin would be the most, and then it had some other hours of what was charged. I don't think this is something that could be passed out to all of us. But, I mean, I just want to know. I looked at. He sent me the information from last year's budget, and nothing looked out of line. There was one planner I wasn't sure of. I'm asking them to look into, see what those hours were for that. But it's really this month I was more concerned than last year. And I'm sure it takes a while to get that information. Commissioner Slowja.
It occurs to me that if someone's charging us on an hourly basis, they must keep records of the time and who's spending it or who's using it. And we should be entitled to know those detailed costs, to know what they did to our benefit.
I'm just concerned, County Council meeting going to this, is that this report I get says hours and dollar amount. And so you can figure out who gets paid more than the other person. And that's my concern of making this public, you know, because I'm sure.
But do they say what tasks they completed?
No, it was just a general, that's why it was just a general X amount of hours, this amount of dollars.
I mean, they could be charging us for coffee breaks, for God's sakes.
I mean, there was like a line for someone that helps Jonathan when he mails the packets. And so there's a person that gets paid. It wasn't very many hours, but I mean, it was in there that this person charges X amount of hours, and it helps Jonathan put the packets together when they're mailed to him, as an example.
Mr. Chair, I know that when an applicant files for a project application and staff works on it, I don't know if it's monthly or bi-monthly, the county staff does send out a report indicating the hours. It's quite cryptic. It goes to the applicant, who's of course fitting the cost. But in our situation where we, I think, have probably been using the legal department in the county, that information may not necessarily need to be distributed to the full commission, but it would be good to get some version of that report on how our budget is being spent. Thank you.
I'll talk with county council and we'll go over to see what can be. I mean, maybe everything can be. I was just being real cautious about not letting something out that I shouldn't be letting out. Thank you. Let's move on. Item 7, district reports. Do we have any reports from commissioners in their district? Commissioner Steinwalt, go ahead.
So I sent this to you, Chair Kaufman. I did talk with the real estate folks and their attorney about whether or not their disclosure form does include the fact that anything over 50 years old may be debt for designation. So that is in their newest called car, forms like the million buy a property. So there is a bullet point in there for disclosure to potential property owners about potential designation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And also, just to let you know, Commissioner Steinwalt sent the subcommittee on historic, looking into potential historic landmarks, and some information for areas in her district that just by observing buildings, wanting to know if they might be potential historic landmarks. And so the subcommittee, we're looking. Any other district reports? Okay, well, let's move on to our standard agenda. This is item number 8, discussion of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 77-526. County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission, HLAC, will review and provide comments on the County Board of Supervisors Resolution number 77-526, declaring the Arroyo Burro Trail, the Rattlesnake Trail, the Hot Springs Trail, Romero Canyon Trail, the Rincon Trail, and the Fremont Trail to be historic landmarks number 14 through number 19. Now, I'm going to give a little background. First of all, Mr. Martin, did you find out anything from the planner, Veronica King?
She is online. She did let me know that there is not much information right now that she has, but she is available for any questions.
Okay, is it okay for me to go over what the research she's done? Okay.
Yes.
So let me give you a background why we're looking at this. As you know, at our last meeting, 2 or 3 days before our meeting, it was too late to agendize it. We got this email. That was at our July 8th meeting, and I did a brief report on the email sent on July 2nd to the Board of Supervisors and us concerning a proposed project on Lower Hot Springs Trail. In the email from Dave Everett was a resolution passed by the Board of Supervisors on November 7th, 1977, designated 6 trails: the Aurora Burro Trail, Rattlesnake Trail, Springs Trail, Romero Canyon Trail, Rincon Trail, and the Fremont Trail as County Santa Barbara landmarks numbers 14 through 19. Also in the email was the minutes from HLAC meeting of September 8th, 1977, designating the trails. So it was like their email, their minutes of that meeting that brought it to the Board of Supervisors. So Veronica King is the planner for that Hot Springs Trail project. I should have the name of that, but I don't, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. And so she has been working on looking into this with County Council, and I believe Veronica King and Nicole Liu, and Ann Ryerson have been looking into this. And Veronica sent an email, which I just got approval to read on what they've been doing so far in research. And this email was sent July 24th. So I'm just going to read what has been going on since our last meeting. So Veronica reviewed resolution number 77526, which designated 6 trails, including the Hot Springs Trail, as historic landmarks. These trails were referred to as historical landmarks number 14 through 19 in the resolution. We could not find any corresponding historic reports that support the designation, or a map site plan describing which portions of the trail are historically significant. Bullet point 2, confirm that resolution number 77526 was recorded after being passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors on November 7th, 1977. Bullet point 3, I checked Planning Development's historic landmarks page and found that it is not listed as historic landmark, and a historic landmarks number 14 to 19 on our website are not the trails we referenced to in resolution 77. Bullet point, reached out to clerk of the board staff to determine whether the designation may have been rescinded. There is no documentation was found indicating that the designation was rescinded. Search for additional records in the clerk of the board's historical archives page under 1977 through 2015. Found resolution number 77526 on page 532 and 533 of 2,515 pages, and references to the Hot Springs Trail in minutes order, and that's the new attachment that you have in there. There's like a little flyer thing. Providing a brief summary of the trail's significance as an integral portion of the South Coast Connector Trail system and for its historical access to the Hot Springs Hotel owned by Wilbur Kurtz. And she said the last bullet point was from my research this afternoon. Going to chat with the agent as soon as possible to see if you can hire a historian to complete this research. So that is kind of an update as of towards the end of July. I don't know, I know we have the planner, Veronica King, is on right now. Veronica, do you want to add anything to this information. First, I want to just say to the commissioners, this was something that is an ongoing work in progress. Planning Development really did not want us to discuss this today, but I felt that we all need to know what's going on. Plus, I think it's important for them to know from us where we think they should do this little research, because we have a lot of experts up here that can give some insight that maybe I and them would not know where to look. So that's why this is up here today, is for us to put our thinking caps on, and there are any other ways that we could maybe find an answer to what happened. So Veronica King, if you're on the line, we'd be happy to hear any updates you might have.
Hi, this is Veronica. I don't have any additional information to add to that email. And I'm available for questions if you have any, but nothing additional to add.
Okay, thank you very much. So before we go any further, I guess we should do the ex parte. Has anyone talked to anybody about this issue that we should know about before we move forward on this agenda item? I just want to make a note that I did have a meeting with Supervisor Williams at the end of last month. It was HLAC in general, but this topic did come up, and we did know about that. So this is kind of an interesting type of agenda item because it's not a certain specific thing that it's a general question. We went over from the staff. I guess we could go to questions, before we go into comments. So, I wrote down some questions, but I'd like to hear any questions from any of the commissioners that they have that we could ask Veronica King or whoever. And you've been involved in this too, correct, Ann Ryerson? I know you just got back from vacation, so.
I haven't independently researched it.
You haven't, okay. So it's
Except-
really Veronica King that.
I did see one, I looked at the state's website and didn't see it listed there.
Okay. Okay, so let's do two questions. Commissioner Duncan.
Yes, I'm actually picking up on what Ann says here. When you look at both the 90-day resolution that the board passed and then the permanent resolution, they referred to the State Historical Resources Commission. And it says that the clerk of the Board of Supervisors is hereby directed to request the State Historical Resources Commission to register the said historic trails by number and description, either as historical landmarks or as points of historic interest, and to provide or cause to be provided appropriate plaques, markers, and directional signs therefore as provided in Public Resources Code, etc. So I would ask the state, did they receive something at that date from the county? Because that would be another record of what happened. And you would have thought if it had been rescinded, they would have told the state that we're rescinding this.
Yeah, but I question that too. As you know, there's two resolutions in front of us. And I'm thinking maybe things were different in 1977 than what they are now. My question is, it looks like this resolution, that was the first one, which has this, what you just mentioned in it. It's the 508 resolution.
Actually, both resolutions refer to talking to the state.
The second one does mention about actually designating them, whereas the first one, it sounds like back then they did the first one to make it for noticing about the upcoming hearing, because it mentions it has to go in the news press. It mentions a lot of things that are for the upcoming hearing in November. And it sounds weird though that they would sign off on it like like a nomination like we do now. But if you read it, it's like they want to make sure that this is noticed in the newspaper. And
Mr. Chair, if you look at the bottom of the very first page on resolution 77508, and this is the 90-day one that I think you're referring to, it does talk about the news press, etc. But at the bottom it says, now therefore it is resolved as follows: the Arroyo Burro Trail, the Rattlesnake Trail, The Hot Spring Trail, the Romero Canyon Trail, the Rincon Trail, and the Fremont Trail in the county of Santa Barbara are hereby respectively designated as Santa Barbara County Historical Landmarks. So it very clearly says that that's what they're planning to do, even though this is just the 90-day one. And then the other one does go on to repeat the same things at the bottom of the first page. So that's resolution 77-526, and says the same thing. Here they give it numbers, historical landmarks numbers 14 through 19. So it doesn't appear to me that there's any equivocation in terms of their designation.
It looks like, yeah, like you said, that number 4 is missing from the later one. And that would be a question for Veronica to look into if, first of all, why the 2 nominations? And the newest one doesn't have the number 4, which has about the Historic Resource Commission to register with the historic in the state of California.
Well, instead, some of that is done in number 3. The revision to the reference to contacting the state is done in number 3 instead, because they don't have number 2, which talks about the news press. They don't have to deal with the news press the second time around, presumably. But I think the critical part, which is the designation, are there in both resolutions.
They're both, yeah, that's.
And in the original direction from the HLAC.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but as chair, I need to go last. So.
Well, what do we currently show as 14 through 19?
That's what that was one of my questions I have. You want me to do my questions? Okay. I want to make sure I'm doing the right procedures here. Okay, question. Jonathan, can you put up our landmarks page and click on landmark number 14? While you're doing that, I'm just gonna, so the resolution, of the 2 resolutions, the newest one, the one that we're discussing today, 77-526, which is the agenda item. It was approved by the Board of Supervisors on November 7th, 1977. And if you look at and it was to nominate numbers 14 through 19 as historic landmarks. Now, if you look at number 14, which Jonathan put up, the landmark date is January 3rd, 1978. That is less than 2 months from November 7th, 1977. So I think we need to do a research between these 2 dates to what happened. And that would be my question. Has research been done between November 7, 1977 to January 3rd, 1978? And the question is, research has been done either Board of Supervisors record, but also the minutes of HLAC. When was the Sexton House nomination first looked into? I mean, what is, this is when it's approved by the Board of Supervisors. But my question is, when did HLAC go through this nomination for the Sexton House? And, when was that done? Because, either they had a great holiday and they just forgot everything that happened over the holiday season. And they just went ahead and started with a new nomination. But something just seems very off here. I mean, it's only a couple of months. I don't know how you could forget that you had already nominated a landmark number 14, and yet you do another landmark number 14 less than 2 months later. So my question is, has research been done to look at this and look at the Sexton House? So Veronica, did you get that question?
Hi, yeah, just so you all know, you're kind of going in and out. I don't know if you need to maybe speak a little bit closer to the mic. Jonathan can probably help
Thank
you
you.
with that, but but I
Let
think I
me-
got the gist.
Yeah, so
Um,
my question is, do research between November 7th, 1977 to January 3rd, 1978. And do research also on this nomination for the Sexton House to see when HLAC went through the process at their meeting to make this a landmark. I can't imagine they did it in the month of December, but it could have happened. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, that's something we should look into.
Are you asking planning and development staff like myself to do this research? Is it a question, or are you asking that if I've already done it?
Well, I know that's where a big question here is money, money, money now. I'm afraid to ask anyone to do anything. I'm just thinking that this is such a big issue that it shouldn't be just billed for HLAC. It should be a county issue wanting to know the answer to this. And I just can't figure out, maybe I should direct it to county council to look into it and not planning and development.
I'm not sure the answer to that, but I can work with my supervisor and management to figure out the answer and get back to you. Perhaps Nicole Blue,
Okay.
work with her as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's another question I have. It was mentioned that there's no historic reports for the trails. The question is, back in 1977, were historic reports needed to make a designation? I don't really think they're needed now. We'd like to have them for the detailed information, but I believe we can do a nomination without one. So I don't think not having historic reports, is a break for not having these nominations. But the question is, I guess, historic reports, were they required back in 1977?
I also don't know the answer to that, seeing as I wasn't around then, but I can look into it and get back to you. My thought is they probably weren't required, and requirements change over time, so it's not necessarily surprising that it wasn't accompanied by a historic report.
Okay, thank you.
Problem.
I thought I had another question, but I can't think of it right now. So any other commissioners have questions on this issue?
Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
since we seem to be more in a discussion mood than a question mode here, I'm wondering if our own internal records have been thoroughly searched. Going back through the minutes for that critical period, I don't know, that would probably mean maybe not very many minutes because we only meet once a month. But or any other miscellaneous files that would be found. To tell you the truth, I don't know where those would be found, but David Villalobos seems to be, for many years, the go-to person for ferreting out obscure information in the county files. One would think there might be some limited information in our own HLAC files. Just an idea.
And I'm reading here on the minute order afterwards, copies were supposed to be sent to county council, and they have in parentheses Smith, so I assume that was county council at that point. And CRATEC, the Santa Barbara County Riding and Hiking Trails Committee, and also in the file. So that would have been the Board of Supervisors file. So we have 3 things designated here that should have copies of all these.
And I have a question for county council. I just now thought of it. so far, it looks like this never was rescinded. So if we just, that we have these landmarks that are not numbered, can HLAC reassign new numbers for these landmarks? So like we're at number 54 now, can we just go through and do the process of saying that these need to have new numbers, whatever they are, and then do kind of a resolution that goes to the Board of Supervisors for final approval? Is this something that we could do at our end if it's decided that these landmarks are really landmarks and they are missing from, we don't know how that happened. So that is a question for County Council.
I think you probably could do that. We could look at what the best way to handle this is. It could be something the board just decides to do without an action by HLAC.
So you're saying it
The
would go
board's-
directly to the
These
board
are the board's resolution numbers.
and the board would just pick out new resolution numbers? Or, I mean,
It's possible. But I'll look into what
okay.
the best approach would be.
I mean, I'm just looking at down the road because it looks like research so far is showing that we have landmarks that we didn't know existed. And first of all, the big question is, how did this happen? And we need to find out so it doesn't happen again. I mean, it sounds like they were recorded. We've had problems in the past where things were missed being recorded, but we have evidence here that these were recorded, Board of Supervisors. That's true. That's why I'm saying we need to find out what
These were
happened.
Actually, these were recorded at the county recorder.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we actually have proof that these were recorded. And so far, nothing's been found that they've been rescinded. Any more questions or comments on this? And then we do have public comment too.
Yeah.
Let's do questions and then we can have public comment and then move on to comments. How's that?
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay. So we do have public speakers for this item. And let's start with Otis Califf and be followed by Art Nahara. And our microphones are really bad today, so just kind of speak into it. Thank you.
Morning, my name is Otis Califf. I'm chair of CRATEC, the County Riding and Hiking Trails Advisory Committee. And it's interesting that we may have been sent notice back in 1977, but I don't know how I would ever find it. But I have some files in my living room still left over from Vivian Oburn, and maybe I can find something in there. But we're very, very interested in this. One of the biggest problems for trail advocates is that our trails are just taken for granted. We don't have funding. A lot of times, all the work is done by volunteers. Very often, developers come and just trample over our trails, and this is part of the issue there with this Hot Springs project. The trails just get obliterated. The Arroyo Burro Trail was paved over back, gosh, it's 15 or 20 years ago now, and that still has not been resolved, and the owners have changed twice. And so anything that we could do to elevate the standing of our trails in the county is really welcome by us. Oh, I was reading Walker Thompson here this last year, and he was talking about some advertising for the Potter Hotel. They advertised over 100 miles of bridle paths back then. So that's our legacy. Thank you.
I'm Arthur Nahara. I'm a retired orthodontist. I've been a member of CRATEC, that's the County Riding and Hiking Trails Advisory Committee. And for the Santa Barbara County Trails Council, I've been a member of both since 1970. I came in with Vivian Ober, who was the founder of both of those. And I'm going to have to take you through a journey so you can understand where Arroyo Burro comes in. It all started with the Hississita Trail, 1971. A group of developers bought Harold Chase's 92 acres up in the San Roque Canyon that extended pretty close to Stevens Park, went all the way up to about the first part of the San Roque Canyon, and that involved the Hississita Trail. These owners couldn't find that the city had an easement through the Hississita Trail, so they proceeded to barb wire it, and people couldn't get through. That time, Barry Capello was the district attorney, and Vivian O'Byrne, myself, and other people involved with trails met them, and they were very adamant they weren't going to give it up. The city couldn't find the evidence that the trail had an easement because it had actually been a county road since the 1980s. And so they had to resurvey it, cost the city $11,000, but it showed that the easement was there. And so they had to back off and let us through. So we got to thinking, now, if that problem happened to the Hississita Trail, what about the Arroyo Burro Trail? This is a historic trail. It's the oldest trail in Santa Barbara County. It goes back 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. The Chumash used that from the Rancho Oso area all the way down through the San Luis Canyon, probably all the way to the beach where the rest of their relatives lived. So at that time, Dick Smith and Bob Coleman, who was the county supervisor at that time, decided to explore and check it. And I took Dick Smith and Bob Coleman on horseback up all the way on the Arroyo Burro Trail to San Antonio Canyon. And we located all the landmarks and what have you. We decided that we should be ready the next time this happens. Well, developers came in from Claremont. Alex Michaels came in and had the same attitude as the first developers on the Hississita Trail. And he decided to close off some of the trails that went through his property. And that's when we had a bitter fight that lasted almost a decade with this man. But in the end, we prevailed. We got affidavits from people that had used it going back to the 1920s. One of them had actually taken horses from Dwight Murphy, brought them all the way from Ojai, and went up through the Arroyo Burro Trail as far back as 1912. I got an affidavit from him. We had a lot of affidavits. And so then finally, came down to a trial. And this man did a lot of damage to the trail while all this was taking place. He just came in with bulldozers and brought in pipelines and all kinds of stuff. And the city was kind of the county actually at that point just kind of backed off. And so finally we went to trial, and we persevered. And unfortunately, the judge, and it was Judge Dodds, gave us the area that was most heavily used. And then there was an area that wasn't as used, as most trails are. If you go on the Hississita Trail, people will go up that one, but they won't go all the way to Inspiration Point where it ends. You use the part that you figure you can use. And same thing with the Arroyo Burro Trail and all the trails around here. Some of them used all the way through, some of them just partially. And the judge decided to cut the baby in half. He decided that he would give us the portion where people use it the most, and then he didn't give us that part up towards the middle before you get to Camino Cielo. And then the rest goes all the way down on the other side to Rancho Oso. And so we had to contend with that. But you know, it's a moot issue. That portion up there is rarely used by other people. So it didn't really present a problem to the landowner. And the landowner was Mr. Attila, and he owns 1,200 acres back there. And so we use it. It's a mood issue. Nobody's there, so we continue to use it. But it needs to be a landmark to protect it from future. I mean, this is a precious trail. It's the oldest trail in Santa Barbara County. And I'm going to leave you with a copy of by Melinda Burns that tells, the history of this and where we are with it. It's long overdue to give this precious trail the protection it deserves. Thank you. I can leave these with somebody here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate you speaking. And next will be Kevin Snow.
I have to disclose Kevin's my husband and he's on CRATEC.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Kevin Snow. I've been involved in trails, I guess with Montecito Trails now for over 40 years on the board and also on CRATEC for about half as long as Art Nahara here. And our engagement with trails has been right from the beginning about how land use change over time has impacted access to the trails, enjoyment of the trails, and ability to maintain and preserve them. I think the issue, as I understand it, with the landmark issue is that once a landmark is given, it gives some protection to the trail so that future development projects just can't ignore their existence or ignore their importance. And the thing that we would like to have resolved is, as it relates to Romero Canyon, is that the kind of development occurring there has already impacted the lower portion significantly. And the county has not had the will or the determination to protect that trail and has allowed private property to, in small ways and large, just gradually encroach here, there, and everywhere so that you notice that the lower portion of the trail is already kind of a mess. Now, the Gerner project that is before you now is going to result in some 500 some feet of basic obliteration of the trail. And P&D doesn't really care to consider that an important impact. And the trails community and the public at large feels that it's unfair to the public, it's unfair to the history, it's unfair to the effort that many of us have been making for these many years to protect these resources for the public in the years to come, and that private interest does not supersede the public interest when it comes to the integrity of trails. So we hope that this landmark designation will give some additional protection as you consider your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. And the last speaker will be Mark Wilkinson.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mark Wilkinson. I'm the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara County Trails Council. I'm a resident of Carpinteria, and I've lived in the area since 1984. It was really important to us to come across these documents because this resolution, which is nearly 50 years old, is very important just in part because it says trails to be worthy of protection and preservation as landmarks. This is something that the Trails Council, which was founded in 1967, has been working on year after year. Our long-term vision was a countywide trail system, a coastal trail, and a mission-to-missions trail that was proposed in 1973. So seeing that the board passed this resolution, we realized that this is of great importance to the people of Santa Barbara County who use our trail infrastructure. If you go back just 100, 110 years ago, all our road structure was dirt trails or wagons and the beginning of the automobile. Matter of fact, the Southern California Automobile Association promoted the California Missions Trail, not because they were religious, but because they wanted to force Sacramento into paving a coastal trail. And they were using that as leverage. But before then, it was just a dirt road. So today, there's a project called the Gerner Development Project, which exemplifies the concerns set forth by the Office of the County Council in 1977 regarding damage to and destruction of historic trails, such as the Hot Springs Trail. Just if you haven't been keeping up with all the articles in the newspaper, the developer's proposal is to pave a segment of the historic Hot Springs trails is a matter of grave concern to us. The plan, which includes a 16-foot wide paved road and Caltrans style retaining walls, would forever alter the historic and rustic character of the trail, as well as the hiking experience. It's important to note that this is on a county-owned easement, not on the developer's nearby 40-acre property. So we're not talking about private property rights. We're not talking about any of those issues. This is a county-owned easement that's being transformed, which had a historical designation, at least in 1977. So the fact that hot springs were probably used by the Native Americans for centuries is an issue to address in modern times. And then with the hotel there, a popular resort visited by dignitaries up and down the state and across the country. So we're eager to understand the purpose of this discussion. We think if it's just a simply remedying a lost numbering system or a misused numbering system, that'd be fabulous. As a part of this idea of historic landmark trails, I'd like to bring to your attention is that during the pandemic, the Trails Council offered a research grant to a publishing company called Cicerone Publishing out of England, and an author, Sandy Brown, who's a writer of pilgrimage guidebooks. And we managed to get a book published on the California Missions Trail. And 25% of this book is about the trail in our area from San Luis Obispo to Ventura. And so I hope one day I'm standing here and we're discussing landmark status for the California Missions Trail in Santa Barbara County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that was our last speaker, unless there's any online.
We have no speakers online.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, so this was a very good discussion session. I guess we should go to comments right now, so we can move on with our other agenda items. I actually had a question for County Council before we go with comments is, if it's true that these are historic landmarks, this project that's proposed for Hot Springs Trail, shouldn't this come before HLAC?
The resolution doesn't have the standard conditions that require approval by your commission. It would depend on if planning decides to bring this to you or you request that they bring it to you.
I thought historic landmarks, just in general, if there is some changes to it, that it would come before us just as a given through Chapter 18A. Not, I didn't know it had to be in the resolution.
I think it is planning's current process to bring changes to landmarks to your commission. It probably is because there's usually a condition in the resolution that says that. So
like Botanic Gardens, like if they're just changing plants, it doesn't come to us because that's in the resolution that they don't have to come to us if it's just, changing the flora. That was my question. And the other was more of a comment, is if I wanted the commissioners to make sure you read the minutes from HLAC for that, when they did that, and who was present there. Los Padres Forest was at that meeting, which it doesn't sound like they were objecting at all, because you imagine most of these trails are through the Los Padres National Forest. So, that's a federal land, and it sounded like they were in approval of these trails at that time. Okay, let's move to final comments on this agenda item. Commissioner Duncan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Yes, going back to your issue, which obviously a lot of us would automatically assume that such a project involving a landmark would come before us. Where this comes from, of course, is 18A, Chapter 18A, which gives us our authority. And there's a 18A-5 is special conditions imposed. That's what authorizes us to put in the condition that if you're changing something, you need to come to us. Okay. I think there were some sort of assumptions that things would not change in the case of a historic landmark, but it wasn't specific in that the commission would necessarily have jurisdiction over the landmark. I think that's the issue that council is going to have to come back and tell us about in the case of such an early landmark and no explicit special conditions imposed at the time of the resolution. Going to the much broader issue of the trails, I'm very much in support of pursuing this and finding out what we can about the situation. I think you could not have a much more valuable and at the same time potentially damaged public resource than a trail. It's something obviously that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And once you break any part of the chain, you lose the ability to use it. It no longer serves us. And obviously, these go back a long time. And they definitely fall into those sort of category of resources that we would want to protect on the public's behalf. And so I encourage the researchers to find out what else they can and council to find out how we can perpetuate our mission by protecting these landmarks that actually 50 years ago were determined to be valuable of a designation. And now they're only more valuable.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Any other comments? Commissioner Snow?
Yes, I just wanted to thank members of another county, a committee, not a commission, but they are here and they are talking to us as a fellow county organization, and I appreciate you coming. And I really do think it behooves us as county missions and committees to attempt to work together to resolve this and not fight against it, but to try to put a unified front, because these are invaluable resources. Thank you.
Commissioner Snow. Sounds like everyone has opened their feet. Commissioner Dunn?
I will chime in that I certainly, without doubt, without reservation, think we should pursue this as far as we can, as far as finding out what happened, find out other sources of information. And in some ways, this is a gift to us, one of those historical events that are unpredictable. The practical side of the matter is if we adhere to our current standard of requested information, professional or semi-professional historical research into a potential landmark. Trails are very difficult to do research on. They're not impossible. There's lots of modern sources like aerial photographs and so on. But that would be something we'd certainly want to get into to better document anything that we would want to follow up and declare a landmark. I had a client once who had a trail adjoining their property, and the county planning and development asked them to have a historian report written. It wasn't one of these trails, but it was really a very interesting but very vigorous research effort to gather information on something that's unpaved, that nobody had ever filed for a building permit on, all the logical local sources that we normally tap into in determining the significance of a property. It's a wildly different sort, and it calls for some pretty strategic and perhaps costly research beyond what we normally would do. But I think we should look into it, and I'd love to see us find a way to formalize these trails as landmarks.
In the past, and county council can help me on this, when the environmental movement started in the early 70s, NEPA and here CEQA were all put into law in the beginning of the 70s. And at that time, there were several cases regarding trails in the 70s. And I do believe, and this is probably more that county council can inform us on, the laws changed a lot. You used to have to document things prior to the early 1970s, and trails that had usage that were documented before then, they would have easements. That's why I think in a way, this is a very important case. This is 1977. This is very early in the environmental laws, and so I don't know our history of the historic landmarks laws. A lot of them, I believe, started in the 60s. So this is early on, and it needs some research, because this documentation and this landmarking will be really essential to keep these easements open. And they're at such an early date.
Okay, I'll just do a quick final comment here, unless someone else has any more. Okay. First of all, I want to thank the person that originally did the email that we found this out about. I mean, and Everett, yeah, I mean, that we wouldn't have even known that this potential landmarks are here. And I want to thank the Trail Councils for being here today to speak, because I think your knowledge educated us a lot about the trails, and I appreciate that. I just think, so far it doesn't look like these landmarks were rescinded. We still are in the research process. And I don't think if this is official, if they were landmarked in 1977, I can't imagine that we'd have to start back and ask for more documentation, like historic reports and stuff, since they already are approved landmarks, according to what we see today. So I don't think having to go back and do more research on these. I think the idea is, if this is true, these were not rescinded, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved these trails as landmarks, they're landmarks. So it's just a matter of how do we get those on our list of landmarks going forward. So I want to thank everybody that coming today, and Planner Veronica King for doing the research you've been doing so far. But I think this, again, is a county-wide issue, and I don't think HLAC should be penalized for all the hours of research on this, when it's something that the county should be looking at as why this happened, and make sure it doesn't happen again, because we probably never would have known this these trails are supposedly landmarks. But anyway, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item number 9.
Should we put this on an upcoming agenda just so we can follow through? Because
Yeah, I can.
so, okay, thank you.
Okay, agenda item 9, approval of historic landmark placard placements. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and approve locations for the following County of Santa Barbara Historic Landmarks placard placements: Maddie's Tavern, the Coral Casino, Davison House, it's the Keenan Hartley House, and the Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens. Let me just do a quick background on this. As you know, after we approved to produce the plaques, we have a signed subcommittee, which consists of Lansing Duncan, Sheila Snow, Commissioner Snow, and myself. And we also got the help with Ron Nye, Commissioner Nye, and we started to reaching out to the owners of the 6 landmarks where they would like to have the plaques placed. Commissioner Duncan reached out to Maddie's Tavern, the Keenan Hartley House, and the Davison House owners. And I'm going to let him report on that, and I'll have him do that first. And just to let you know, in the South County, on July 11th, Commissioner Snow, Commissioner Nye, and I walked Rocky Nook Park and also the Botanic Gardens, looking for potential sites that we could then communicate to the owners, which is one is, of course, the County of Santa Barbara, where we'd like these plaques to be placed and get a consensus with them where they would like it. And I have to say, Commissioner Snow it was a twilight type walk. It was like late afternoon. And Commissioner Snow gave us a wonderful tour of the Botanic Gardens. And we got our afternoon exercise. We hiked all over. Yes, and the dog. It was a very, very nice and very fruitful meeting. And so I contacted Jeff Lindgren. He's the County Parks Department, and also got a hold of Steve Winhager. He's the Executive Director of the Botanic Gardens. And I sent them the pictures of the places that we thought would be good for these plaques. And both of them have gotten back to me. And Botanic Garden, Steve went over some things, and I went over what he thought was a good place with the subcommittee, and we came up with a location. And Jeff Lindgren from County Parks, he pretty much is positive the place that we want to have it, but he's swamped during the summer. He's down some staff people, so he wants to wait till after summer in September that we'll find a potential site. So we will not be doing the Rocky Nook Park today. So what we're going to do today, as you know, because these are landmarks, County Council said that the approval of where the plaques should be approved by the full board and not just the subcommittee saying, let's put the same there. So today we're going to approve where the placement of these plaques will be. And I want to start first, like I say, with North County, and I'm just going to turn it over to Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I previously reported in a district report that I met with Jorn Schrager, who's the director there at Maddie's. And we looked at both the tavern and Hartley House. So I'm going to deal with both of them now. In terms of the Davison House, although I've been able to contact the owner, and I know she very much wants a plaque, has ever since she originally nominated the property and had it landmark. She's now living elsewhere and renting the unit. So we've had a more difficult time arranging a time to get together and talk about it. Some of the situations will be a little bit similar to what we find at Hartley House. So I'm showing you these historic pictures of Maddie's just to point out what are the oldest elements of the structure. And if you look at this top illustration, of course, it was called the Central Hotel originally, focusing on its central location in the county at the terminus of the railway at that point, which came into town at 1887. And originally, this sort of salt box structure was created, and very soon after it, that little wing that we can see with the Italianate brackets and cornice was added to it. Yeah, so this is probably very soon after that. The core building on the left, the doorway you see is actually the entry to the bar. And there, if you look carefully, those are actually beer signs that are on either side of the doorway there. And then the hotel is in the more domestic part to the right. You can even see a Felix Matty in there as the third from the left. But just a few years later, 20 years later, this wing to the right has been totally expanded. He actually built a whole separate bodega, and then the two were connected. So that you now have this long wing and a different name. At this point, it was Hotel Los Olivos. It could take that name because the Los Olivos Hotel built by the railroad had burned down. So it could use this name that more people would relate to. But there, if you look on the left, that doorway that was the doorway to the bar has now become the stagecoach office. And that's important because when we look to where we're going to place this plaque, it's only logical that it go on the most historic part of the structure. If we go to the next page, please, Jonathan. If you look at Hartley House, and it's actually the Keenan Hartley House, and that's how the plaque is going to be read, because Keenan was actually the one who built it. And his wife was actually a relative, a sister of Lucy Fisher Matty. So Felix Matty's wife. At that point in time, this house was not on the grounds of Matty's Tavern. It was a few blocks away. It was one of these structures that's been moved. But if you look at that, once again, we have this sort of saltback box configuration, and you can see that the main entry door is right there in the front. Subsequently, a whole porch was added to the structure. And if you look at the lower picture, we're looking through the water tower on the grounds of Matty's Tavern. You can see Hartley House behind it. And so I'm just providing you that so that you have orientation. The next picture, please, Jonathan. So this is actually Hartley House. And you can see that's the doorway. And what you have to the right is essentially this mock-up where we take a plaque and it's 7 by 10, and then you put it on a backer board that's 10 by 13. And that way we can have a deal with the reverse mount, hide the mountings that we have, and in this particular case, have to deal with the battens. So more than likely, we'll be putting essentially shimming bats under the top and the bottom so that it's at the same level as the battens. But both Jorn and I thought this was a good location. If we put it to the left, you're dealing with a button and a light, and at least on the right there, it has a simple background, and it's right at the entry. Next picture, please. And one more. So this is just pulling out so you can see, and you can even still see this far back, you can actually see where the plaque would be. Okay, next picture. So here is what was originally the entrance to the bar. And now the same little mock-up has been stuck on the wall here for our plaque location, became the stage office. And you can pull out once more, Jonathan. And again, next picture. Yeah.
Could I ask
You got some more somewhere.
Are all of these installed at the same height?
They're all at the same height, basically made to just be at eye height. So you'd be able to read them. Can you find the other? Okay. The one other picture I had there, I had two pictures from the front of Maddie's to orient you, to just show you how that part of the building is connected to the larger wing. And then with Maddie's, just there's a window and then a door, and that door is the entry to the restaurant. So that was just to point out to you, for those who are familiar with the entry to the restaurant, that it's right next door where we're proposing to put it. Ah, there you go. Perfect. So here you go on the right-hand side. There is the entry to the restaurant. There's this intervening window, and there's the enter to the what would be the stage office with our plaque next to it. And then, do you have the other picture that pulls out? It is located. It's important here because the trellis sort of obscures the front view. Okay, so there you go. You can see the entire frontage there. And then there should be one more picture where I'm straight on. You have the straight on picture? If you're looking straight on at the stage door, there, you can see your plaque right there next to the stage door. So the executive manager for Maddie's thought these were good locations, and he was also representing the owner of the Hartley House because it's the same property. Any questions?
Any questions for?
The one thing I would add is when we get to the Davison House, it's going to be the sort of situation, same situation with Board and Batten. So we'll actually be locating the plaque in a way that fits with the way the bats are, and hopefully we can get it pretty close to the front entry.
I have a question. Is the height of both of these plaques the same?
This one might be a little bit lower, and it has to do actually with the fact that there's a little signage there already. There's this little tavern signage that they have, and this just seemed like the right relationship. It'll still be very easy to read. And one of the things that's happening here is you've got an oversized door with a transom, so it appears lower, but I think actually it's very close to the same height.
The one on the Hartley House
Both high.
looked a little high, but it could be, you know, if we were there, it wouldn't look that.
It's the scale of the doors. In both cases, I tried to put them at eye level. Yeah. This is just a standard door. You can see it's, you know, it's not exactly 6'8".
That looks a little high to me.
But
It's not.
there are transoms over the entry to the stage office, which change your proportion.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan, and thank you for all the work to reach out to the owner. I mean, as we know, it's not easy to find the owner or a representative of the owner to find out to, first of all, get their permission and then walk the property and find a place for the plaque. And as you mentioned, these are all been approved by the owner. Thank you.
Lansing, isn't the Davison House for sale again? Isn't the Davison House for sale again?
I don't know at this point. It's being rented right now. Okay.
Well, let's move on. Let's move to the Botanic Gardens. This was an interesting walk that we had, in that there are signs everywhere. And so when we were looking, we were trying to think, well, where could we put a sign that doesn't distract from the beauty of the gardens? And we found a few places. One was if you haven't been there for a while, there's like what they call the new entrance. And a while ago, there was an old entrance that had the old sign but no one goes through there. It's blocked off. And so that we thought might be a possibility. So we got a hold of with the executive director, and we originally thought one of the locations, if you see this picture here, we thought maybe a sign like down low under the big tree. And it was kind of nixed because they changed those plants off and on. And first of all, Botanic Gardens is not allowed to put any new plaques on boulders. So that pretty much stopped, you know, like doing a small rock with the plaque on it. So Mr. Weingarter came up with the idea of, this is what you're looking at is the gift shop. Everyone, it's near the entrance. And this is kind of like after you go hiking, it's a place to rest. And there's the gift shop. And then there's also the plant store, which is just to the right of the gift shop. So a lot of people congregate in this area. He came up with the idea of putting the plaque on the gift shop. And if you look at this picture, there's the door. And you can see that if you make that bigger, Jonathan, that is a sign to the right of the for the gift shop. So that place is full. And this is, like I say, faces out to the courtyard. So his idea is on the far left, on the left side of where the window is, the display window. So all signage would be on that side of the gift shop. So the next picture shows a close-up. So that's the wall that he proposes to have the sign. And after looking at the rest of the park, there was a couple of areas that overlooked the dam that maybe, but again, we're adding signs into the nature of the park. So the subcommittee came up to approve that this would be a good location for it. So this is the location that we're bringing to you today for the Botanic Garden. Any questions on this location? Okay, well, let's move on to Coral Casino. Coral Casino, as you can imagine, it was kind of difficult to figure out how to get a hold of somebody. I went through the planner for the last project that we did. The planner gave me to someone, his contact information, and then he gave me a contact information to very close contact of the owner, Mr. Warner, Ty Warner. And my big concern at the very beginning is, where do you put a plaque that doesn't conflict with the architecture of this building? Because, you know, for years we've been seeing projects and we're fighting and fighting to make the front keep its original integrity, that very modern design. And so I wasn't quite sure where a plaque would go. But last week, Mr. Warner and the person I've been contacting with walked the whole property, and they came up with this, and it's right at the entrance where everyone walks in, and it's a pillar facing into the front door. So it's not facing out, so it won't hurt the look of that modern look, because a brass plaque doesn't really fit with the design of the building. At least I don't think it does. And so the plaque would go on this wall facing in. So it's not visible from the front of the building as you would drive by in your car. But as you walk up, it'd be right at eye level as you walk into the front door. So everybody that's going to the Coral Casino, except for maybe that new restaurant entrance, will see this plaque. So I immediately, talked to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee thought that this would be a good spot for the plaque. And get the approval of the owner, I thought was very good. He personally picked out this spot. So any questions on this location? No? Okay. And like I say, so we'll approve on these today, and then we'll come back whenever we get the Rocky Nook Park and then the Davison House. So we've actually have 4 plaques approved, which will be great. So we can this probably should be a vote, right, Ann?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Should we wait? Someone had to take a quick break. Oh, he's gone. He had to leave. Okay. So someone want to do a motion to approve these placements of the plaques? And it's for Maddie's Tavern, Coral Casino, Hartley House, and the Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens.
I will move that we place a bronze historic landmarks plaque on as agreed upon at Maddie's Tavern, Davidson House, Hartley House, and the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden.
It's,
The
it,
places mentioned and reviewed at this session.
and we, it's not the Davison House today.
Not the Davidson.
not the
okay. Oh, I'm
Davidson.
sorry. I just was reading that. Okay. And the Coral Casino.
And the Coral Casino. Do we have a second?
Second. The easy part.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We have one more agenda item, real quick here. And this is approval of historic landmark nomination for contract work done by Amber Long for the Cold Springs Bridge nomination. The invoice was online. I hope you saw it. It's for $875. As you know, the original contract was up to $1,000. This invoice came in like today's Monday, I would say Wednesday last week. It's dated the 6th, so it was towards the middle of last week. And I decided to put it on the agenda, and this is something I want to discuss later, but as you can see, it expires, payment is due by September 5th. So if I was to wait to get it on today's agenda, she would not be paid on time. So this is to prove that there probably will be a small amount when we actually have the hearing, because this does not include her hourly charge to be online for the hearing. So there'll be a little small invoice for that, but it's way below the $1,000 that we approved. So I want to get this approved today, but I also want to ask a question to HLAC members. Since we approved this for up to $1,000, do we need to bring this back to HLAC for final approval? I was thinking after I did this that maybe as chair, I could just sign off on it and then let you know after the fact that it was paid. Because something like this, it was just barely, I had to spend extra time with Jonathan to change the agenda. It cost money. And, to get this on the agenda. Whereas if I could just tell whoever in accounting, go ahead and pay the bill, and then after the fact, show you what the invoice is. I mean, I would always show you what the invoice is. But I'm thinking this would save time and everything going down the road. So someone who gives us a bill doesn't have to wait for a whole HLAC meeting to get approval. I mean, I did that on the plaques, but this one, for some reason, I thought, well, maybe we should have. So it sounds like a consensus that in the future, yeah, because we approved a certain amount. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, that was the other thing is, I was thinking, should I show you what it's the nomination. So we're going to hear the nomination next month. So you'll see what the work that was done on the nomination. I didn't want to bring it now because that would bring discussion about the nomination of Cold Springs. And I thought I'd wait till the actual agenda item to bring it. But she did the nomination. Like I said earlier, I'm doing the 30-day peer review right now, and it looks very good. And it will be brought forward at September 9th. Okay. So someone do a motion to pay this invoice?
I move that we pay this invoice.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor to pay the invoice? Oh, yes, discussion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to clarify when I make my vote that I wasn't in favor of doing this in the first place, but since it's already been contracted out and it's been done, I'm not going to vote for it nor against it.
So let's do a roll call vote for this, just to make it so it's on the record. So I'll go left to the right. Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner, what? Go ahead.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinwalk, I'm tired. Aye, okay, Commissioner Nye?
Aye.
Commissioner Snow,
Aye.
Commissioner Sluga,
Aye.
Commissioner Malcolm. Oh, you're going to abstain?
Randy abstain, yeah.
Okay, and Commissioner Copeland, Gray, aye. So we have all ayes and one abstention. And that includes our meeting for today, and it's 12:15, and our next meeting will be September 9th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the same room. Thank you very much.